Okay, now that we have our BloodHound Getting Started system built out, we've got some signals and we think they're good, but it's hard to tell without testing them. Let's go in and run a back test to see what kind of results we might have gotten on this chart. Now before we do, I'm going to make a little change to our BloodHound system really quick. Let's go into BloodHound here under the Logic tab. And remember in the first video I mentioned that we saved the BloodHound Getting Started.bht file. That's the file we saved on the computer. And remember I said that you can have any number of logic templates inside that file that you can switch back and forth between. Each one can have different logic or different signal rules. So I'm going to actually rename this logic template that we've created here because really what we're going to do is use these signals as our rules for entering a trade. So we're going to say when a red signal appears, enter a short trade. And also when a green signal appears, enter a long trade. And since these are entry signals, let's name this logic template my entry signals because later we're going to be creating one for exit signals. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to close this window. And by the way, when you close the BloodHound window, as long as you're working in a file that you've saved, it saves it. So you don't have to go File, Save every time. As long as you just close the window, that saves it. Okay, now in order to run a backtest or automatically trade anything in NinjaTrader, you can't actually use just an indicator. Remember, BloodHound we got on the chart by going into the Indicators window. And just like the moving average or the ADX, these are just there to give you visual output. BloodHound is the same way. It's just an indicator as far as NinjaTrader is concerned, and you can't take trades with those. And so we had to create a strategy component that is the thing that can take trades in NinjaTrader. So we'll right click on the chart, go Strategies, and we'll go into the SharkIndicators folder. And you'll see SI Raven and SI Blackbird. We'll get into Blackbird later on, but Raven is the focus of this video. Blackbird is sort of our premium trade management tool. Raven, however, comes free with BloodHound. So if you own BloodHound, you own Raven. So we'll double click that to add it to the chart. The first thing we'll do is tell it which BloodHound file to look at, to use. So we'll go BloodHound Getting Started. Now that we've loaded that, we can tell it which of the logic templates that was in that file we'll use for the entry signals. And right now we only have one logic template in there, so we'll choose my entry signals. That's why I named it that. And later on, if you decide to create logic that will exit your trades, you can choose that here. We'll get into that later. Some of these other settings, most people will leave on default, so I'm not going to cover it in this video, but I will show you later how to get more information on what these things are. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. Backtest mode is important if you are looking to run a backtest. You don't need to, you can just trade live with your signals, but for right now we're going to test our system. I'm going to leave the rest of these settings default for now, but they are useful in some circumstances. Raven's default trade management is pretty simple. It allows you to create a profit target and stop loss. You can even trail in a fixed way. You can also change, if you have an ATM template that you've created, you can switch to that and use that as your trade manager. Unfortunately, NinjaTrader's built-in ATM, which is what this uses, can't be backtested. So we're not going to demonstrate that here since the ATM is a NinjaTrader feature and can't be backtested. But at least you know that you can do more advanced trade management once you get a feel for how to use Raven. Okay. So I was playing around with this earlier, and for this demonstration, I want to set a nice big profit target and stop loss. So I'm going to set 100 ticks for the profit and 80 for the stop loss and see how that looks. I set it smaller earlier and it just wasn't enough in my opinion. So we're going to set profit target, stop loss. Everything from here down are all default settings that are available in any strategy in NinjaTrader. So most of these you won't need to adjust right off the bat, but you'll notice that under Setup, the account setting right now is set to Sim 101. That's important if you are looking to do simulated, paper trades, back testing, anything like that. without risking real money. Once you are ready to start trading live and have Raven enter automatically for you, if that's what you want to do, this is where you would change that. This all the account management, all of the trading that actually takes place is being handled by NinjaTrader. So anything involving your brokerage, your account, all of that stuff is handled from the NinjaTrader Control Center window. And so when you're ready to start working with that stuff, you will want to look into how to set that up in NinjaTrader from their support or documentation. So we'll leave these default for now. Every strategy in NinjaTrader has this enabled checkbox. It needs to be checked before we can start the strategy. Now, by the way, if this is grayed out, if you cannot click this to check it, make sure that you are connected to a data feed. That is required for a strategy to work in NinjaTrader. So now we've got a very basic system, just entry signals with a profit and stop loss, just as an example to see what we can get, and then we'll go a little more advanced as we go. So we'll click OK. And this window always pops up when you enable a strategy. We'll click OK. Okay, we've added Raven to the chart, and there's a few things that I need to point out to make sure this is all clear. First of all, you'll notice that the Raven panel is now on here, very similar to the Ninja Chart Trader panel. So when you are trading live while Raven is running, you can enter trades yourself. It's not here to take control from you. So you're always, if you're in a trade, you can hit close, you can go long, etc. You probably already noticed down here, we now have a second BloodHound panel, right? So we had the original BloodHound indicator that we added in an earlier video that has the signals that we created. And then this second panel showed up down here that says Raven BloodHound Getting Started, the name of our template file. So you might be wondering, well, first of all, why are there two? And second of all, why does it look so weird, right? We're getting a very odd output from this panel down here. And that's actually because by default, BloodHound gets set to having no logic template selected. This is sort of a quirk in NinjaTrader. So if you ever see this weird output down here, look at the top and you'll notice that it says no logic selected. We need to click that and select our entry signals or whichever signals we want to see on the chart at the time. Okay. So now that I've done that, we can confirm that yes, the BloodHound that's coming from Raven is matching the BloodHound that we had originally. Basically what's happening here is you have BloodHound running inside Raven, right? So Raven, the strategy, added a new instance of BloodHound to the chart. That's why we have a new panel down here. To simplify things and to avoid confusion, I'm going to remove the indicator version of BloodHound, the indicator that we added earlier to the chart. So I'm going to click on the plot for BloodHound and press delete on my keyboard. And that actually works with any indicator, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. If you click on the SMA line, and if I were to press delete, it would be removed from the chart. Okay, so now let's take a look at the actual trades that were taking place and just kind of make sure that they're lining up with our signals and kind of see how this works. So you probably saw right away, you've got these markers on the chart that tell you where these backtests, these historical trades took place. And by the way, if you're following along with me, but you don't see these markers on the chart, you'll need to make a change to your data series settings. So do this if you don't see those. Right click on your chart, go to Data Series, that's your chart settings, scroll down to the very bottom, and make sure that Plot Executions is set to Text and Marker. Many people turn that off early on because they want to clean up their charts, but while you're learning something new that is going to be taking trades and backtesting and all that stuff, you want to have as much information in front of you as possible to confirm that it's behaving the way you expect it. And then you'd click OK. Okay, let's take a quick glance at what this is doing. We see this first signal here was a short signal coming out of BloodHound, coming out of the entry signal template that we told Raven to use for entries. And so it says sell short. So sell BloodHound Getting Started, that's the name of our template file, short. So we entered a short trade and it went down and then it came back up. And then on this bar right here, our BloodHound template generated a long signal. And so by default, Raven will close the short that we're currently in and enter a new long trade, because that's the way Raven is set up by default. If you get a reverse signal, it will reverse the trade. So in this case, we started with a short trade. Again, these are just simulated, back-tested historical trades. We started short, and then a new signal, opposite signal appeared. So it closed the short trade and entered a long trade. And then if we follow this down, see what happened down here. It got stopped out. So we were in a long trade and unfortunately hit our stop loss. And because I set the stop loss so big, on this particular trade, it was a pretty hefty loss, right? Thankfully, this is just a simulated trade. So let's take a look at the performance results. And this is another NinjaTrader feature, not from BloodHound or Raven. So Raven is there to tell NinjaTrader, please take a trade here, please put the profit target here, please exit here. But NinjaTrader is actually doing the work of contacting the broker, of submitting the orders, of keeping track of your performance results. Raven is just the strategy that's making your life much easier, hopefully, compared to doing all of this by hand. So let's right click on the chart, go strategy performance, Raven, the strategy, and we're looking at historical trades only, just the backtest. And let's see what we got. I actually have not looked at this one yet myself. And it looks like if you're just looking at the total net profit, so on this particular chart with these particular BloodHound signals in this particular time frame, so this chart was 14 days in, if you remember, a very volatile time in the market. So I'm not too surprised that we see a negative, and that's good that we see a number. It's okay if it's negative because that gives us a benchmark to work from. We're learning about how our system behaves, and then we can make changes, which we'll do in a minute here. So we can hopefully improve things and see what changes improve things, and maybe we can figure out why. Okay, so it's telling me it would have roughly been about a negative $1,800 net profit with a total of 33 trades over 2 weeks. And again, I have to emphasize this strategy performance window is a NinjaTrader feature. So to learn more about how to read these numbers, how to dig through this, maybe how to read the analysis display, any of that, you'll want to dig into NinjaTrader's documentation, videos, support forums, whatever you find useful for learning more about the strategy performance results in NinjaTrader. Okay, so now we have a benchmark number, 1790 in the red, and I have an idea for a very slight change to eliminate some BloodHound signals, reduce my number of trades, and I'm curious what kind of effect it'll have on my profit and other things in here. So we'll close that window. Now, even though we have BloodHound running inside of Raven, we can still go up and make changes on the fly. By the way, you'll notice that the BloodHound button is now orange in color. That tells you that that instance of BloodHound is coming from Raven. So you remember it was white before on the indicator, but now that we're running Raven, it's orange. That's just to let you know what you're working with. Same window comes up. We'll go to the logic tab here. And my idea, I know a lot of people like to do this. Let's see if I can find an example here. Here is an example. Here's actually two examples in a row. So these signals both took place on bars that were the opposite direction. This long signal right here occurred on a bar that closed down, right? And these signals are calculated on the bar close, right? So at the time that this signal appeared, we know that the bar closed down. And so my idea is that we want to filter out and remove any signals that would have occurred on a bar that went the opposite direction of that signal. And it looks like both of these are that way. This one is long on a down bar, this one is short on an up bar. So let's add that very, very simple rule, and I'm curious how that'll affect our system. So we'll go in here, and we're going to add the bar direction node, the same one we used in the very first video of this series here. So we'll go into the solver nodes, and remember we're working with multiple time frames in this template, so we have to go into the default time frame. That's this 5 minute that we're running BloodHound and Raven on, default time frame, and bar direction. Okay. And let's scooch these guys up a little bit here. Give room for the bar direction. And really, we don't need to do anything else besides just connect it with the rest of our system and watch those two signals disappear. And if we scroll around, we should see other signals there, red on red, green on green, red on red, very good. But those two are gone. Now, if you're paying attention, you might be wondering, let me close this really quick. You might be wondering, well, we got rid of those signals, but the simulated trades are still there. And if I went into my performance results, they would stay the same, right? So nothing has changed. Why is that? Well, when we go in and change BloodHound, change the rules for our signals, all we're doing right now is changing the visual display that we got. So we got rid of those signals, but Raven has already run its backtest. These results are cached. They're saved in memory on your computer. They're already in front of you. And so in order to get it to pick up that change, we have to reload the chart, which will trigger a new backtest. So to do that, we can press F5 on the keyboard or go down to Reload NinjaScript. So we'll do that now. Yes, it's just warning you, you may be in a trade or something. It doesn't want you to accidentally refresh while you're inside of a trade. We'll click yes. Okay, actually, okay, so now that we've refreshed the chart, I'm glad that this came up because this gives me a chance to show you what is going on here. So first things first, remember, if you get weird output from Raven or BloodHound, either one, you've got weird output from the signals panel from BloodHound, remember, go up to the top here and select your logic template that you want to see. It's just a quirk in the way that NinjaTrader loads our tools. Okay, so now we can see we're still in the same place, same time as we were before, but we don't see those two trades because those signals are now gone. The back test has been rerun and the test no longer includes those two trades. Now you'll see one other thing, pretty obvious, is these two, the profit target and the stop loss that are here that say simulated. So this is interesting, why it's almost acting like we're in a trade. Well, NinjaTrader, when you're running a backtest, if it resulted in a trade that would still be there by the time it reaches the live time, right? So this is live, or this is the last bar. And so we're still in that simulated fake trade. And so we're just going to close that out, flatten the simulated position here. So we'll hit close, and that should do it. So this last trade isn't accurate to what would have happened in the real world, but we just closed it out so we can proceed. Okay. So we still have those two trades that we took earlier. Nothing has changed there, but let's take a look at our performance results again and see if the little change that we made to our signals had any effect. And again, I actually haven't tested this myself, so I'm kind of curious. It looks like it made a pretty big difference. So $690 up from, do you remember what the benchmark was? $1790, I think, in the negative, in the red. So we can assume that we're probably moving in the right direction. Of course, a quick back test in any chart platform like this is never going to be perfectly accurate in the numbers you get. There are things that aren't considered, like intra-bar data, things that happen during the bar, bid and ask data, slippage, things that can affect the outcome, the results of your trades. But these numbers act as a good benchmark because you're comparing the 1790 in the red to the new number 690. Even though you shouldn't assume that these numbers are perfectly accurate, they at least let you know that the changes you're making are probably moving you in the right direction. And that's always good. This is a learning process. You go through this loop of create an idea, build it out in BloodHound, test it, make a change, test it again. Make a change, test it again. That's the loop you go through while you're developing your ideas, so you can get through this process very quickly. And then once you feel like you've made pretty good progress with your system so far, then you can take it and do more thorough, more accurate testing that's a little slower using the market replay connection on a forward live-like environment test. I'll show you later how to learn more about how to use the market replay for testing in Raven. But for right now, the change I made, I swear I have not tested that before, so this worked out really well. I like that little change happened to improve the results, and I think logically it makes sense that adding that bar direction filter could have a positive impact, but you never know for sure until you try. You'll also notice that it resulted in 13 fewer trades over those 2 weeks, which would have, in theory, provided a better result overall, but also hopefully save you some money on brokerage fees. Okay. So now we've created a basic entry signal system, but I said earlier that you are able to create exit signals in BloodHound as well. So we have only the entries right now, and then to get out, you're relying on your stop loss and your profit targets. But what if you actually have BloodHound rules that you want to create that would prevent trades or exit trades that are already in? That is very easy to do. So let's go do that. So we'll open BloodHound back up and we'll go into our logic tab. And this is where the logic templates come in. So we've already created my entry signals here. Let's click new and we'll call it my exit signals. Again, you don't need to call it that exactly. It's just what I call it. Okay, so the idea I have for when I want to exit trades and stay out of trades is going to be based on a time frame. So in our hypothetical system, I want to make it so that signals are only allowed, trades are only allowed during the day. I don't want signals or trades to appear overnight. So let's add the time session solver. So we'll go into solver nodes, default time frame, because again, we're just looking at this 5-minute chart. Time session solver. And this allows us to create signals that will appear or not appear only during certain periods of time. So I'm going to connect it. Nothing happens yet because we need to tell it what the session is. So we'll go into the session here, click the little button. And this lets you create either your own custom schedule or one that's already in your NinjaTrader settings. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and choose the US equities ETH. Actually, no, I want to do the RTH. There we go. Yeah, 9:30 to 4. That sounds right. Now you can learn more about how all of this works on the time session solver webpage, which I'm actually going to show you how to learn more about a variety of things later on. Okay, so we're going to allow trades between 9:30 and 4. And we're going to exit any trades that are outside of that time frame and not allow any new trades to occur. We'll click OK. And let's scroll back just to see what we get so far. Okay, we've got a bunch of signals. Remember, these are filter signals, so they're long and short on the same bar, meaning it doesn't matter what else we add to it, it's going to filter that in. And it looks like it's between 7:30, that's Mountain Time, so that's 9:30 Eastern Time, until the 4 p.m. Eastern. But that's actually the opposite of what we want, right? Because if you think about it, these signals, these exit signals, are saying when there's a signal, exit the trade, or don't allow a trade in the first place, right? So actually, we want to reverse this so that we get signals at all the times except for these, the night time. We want signals in the evenings and overnight. So we can actually reverse this by just swapping these outputs. Remember, BloodHound, its outputs are between 1 and 0. So if we swap this, in session is 0 and not in session is 1. Okay, so now we've effectively reversed that. So when we put this into Raven, these trades, these simulated historical trades, will not appear. And this one should. Okay, let's go back into our strategies window. We'll select Raven. And you'll notice that it's not letting me change anything. All these settings are grayed out. That is because Raven is running. Any strategy that's running cannot be modified. So we'll uncheck that, click Apply. There we go. Scroll up to the top, and remember, we've already loaded BloodHound Getting Started, that's the file, and we've told it to use the entry for the entries. And so we'll go into the exit logic, but you'll notice that it's missing my exit signals. I've already created them. I saved the file by closing that window, but they're missing. Why is that? Well, it's because NinjaTrader has already cached all of these settings. It has loaded, before we even added that exit logic template, we had already loaded our file into Raven. And so it hasn't recognized that change. This is just the way that NinjaTrader's caching works. And so we can get around that very easily by hitting the little X. We're going to clear out that load. We're going to clear out that file, and we're just going to reload that file, BloodHound Getting Started. Okay, so now we'll select entry for entry and exit for exit. There we go. And I'm not going to mess with any other settings. It's a good idea if you're making little changes that you want to make sort of one change at a time while you're testing stuff, so you can tell more easily which of your changes are having an effect on your performance results. So I don't want to mess with too much in here because I'm about to test the exit signals that I've just added. Okay, so we'll hit enabled and hit OK. Okay, remember the first thing you do, you see a weird output down here, go up here and choose your entry signals, because that's generally what you will want to see normally, but you can switch back and forth between the entry and exit without affecting your trades, right? We've already told Raven to use the entry for entries, and so switching this is only there to show you different things, which can be very, very useful in the future for you. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this. During the regular trading hours, this signal appeared, so it did allow it to come through. It entered long and got stopped out, unfortunately, hit the stop loss. Let's scroll forward and see if we can find an entry signal that did not take a trade. Okay, we'll scroll forward. Yes, okay, that's what I thought. Yep, so here it was around 2:45 a.m. my time, so even on the Eastern time, that was still very early. And so even though the BloodHound entry signals, we've told it should enter a trade when we get a signal here. But if we go back over to the exit signals, that's a whole big wave of exit signals saying, this is a time that we are not going to allow a trade, whether it be an entry trade, or if we were already in a trade, then get out of it. So in the middle of the night, the exit signals took precedence, and so there were no trades, even though we got signals from the entry. Very, very powerful stuff once you start using that. But as you saw earlier, you certainly don't have to use exit signals. Not everyone does. It's just there in case you feel like that would be useful for you. Okay, let's scroll back and see if we can find another example here. Okay, so I was looking for an example where a trade was cut short by the exit signals, right? Where we were in a trade and it got exited out by a signal. This looked like one, but it's not. So it hit the stop loss. But let's very quickly adjust our time session solver just to push that back, just so I can demonstrate that really quick. So I'm going to do this really quick and adjust my hours. So let's see, this was a Friday, and so I'm just going to tweak the end time, because remember the signals were reversed, so we're controlling this blank area here. So I'm going to shrink this just a little bit by double clicking that and go 3:45. Let's see if that does the trick. It does. Okay, so what we expect to see here when I refresh, I'm going to close this window. Again, as long as you hit close, it'll save. Okay, and so what we expect when I reload the backtest is, instead of letting this trade hit the stop loss, instead the exit signals will stop it right here on the close of this bar, which in this case, that's a good thing. But really the point of this is just to demonstrate the fact that that's what happens. So I'm going to reload the chart. Okay, we reloaded the chart. Remember, we're getting weird output from BloodHound, so we're going to select the logic template. And yeah, it looks like that it looks like the change we made worked. Okay, so we still got a short signal on Friday afternoon, but as soon as 3:45 rolled around Eastern time, it closed the short trade, not because it hit the profit target, but because it hit our exit signal. And this actually brings up a good point. You'll notice that it shows up on the following bar. So you may be wondering, well, why is it not showing up on the bar the signal appeared on? Well, that's actually the result of the way NinjaTrader's backtest engine works and displays its information. So in reality, if you were running this on a live chart or even a market replay, anything that behaves like live data, which this does not, we're looking at historical bars. But when you're running on live data, the default behavior in NinjaTrader is that it waits until the bar closes, which is right there, and then the BloodHound signal appears. It fires at that moment when that 5-minute bar closes, and at that moment it attempts to enter the trade, right? And so in live trading, you would typically see the trade appear right there, but NinjaTrader's backtest engine simply sticks it on the next tick, or what it considers the next tick, which is the open of the following bar. That typically has almost no effect on your backtest results, so that's worth knowing, but especially on some bar types that can have an effect because you're essentially taking trades at the open of the following bar instead of the literal tick in which it would have happened in real life. On a time-based bar like this, it has very little effect. But if you were running an adjusted bar type like the Renko bars, that's actually why we made a backtestable Renko bar, because that was such a problem for some people. So you can learn more about the backtest Renko bar and learn more about that specific problem on our website. But anyway, so now that we've added exit signals to our system, let's go strategy performance, Raven, historical, and see how it affected things. Now it happens to have gone down, total net profit, but the volatility potential from overnight and extended hours trading may be worth that sacrifice, because maybe in reality you would have been much happier not trading overnight. And also you'll notice far fewer trades took place. So over this 2-week period, far fewer signals and far fewer entries occurred, because we are no longer allowing trades outside of the regular trading hours. So that's always up to you as the trader. You are the trader. We're just here to provide a tool that hopefully makes your life easier. And so you have to make these difficult decisions on when to enter, when to exit, and when to stay out altogether, right? Okay, so I think we've covered the important things that have to do with backtesting. One thing that I should probably mention is, like I said earlier, when you're ready to start trading, you can enter by hand by clicking go long, go short, and actually I could do that right now, and it will enter in this case, a simulated trade, right? Because I'm working off of a paper money account. If we look back and remember in the strategies, in the Raven settings, account here is Sim 101. That's what I'm sure most of the people watching this video will be using, because you're still new to BloodHound, you're still new, some people are still new to trading in general. You generally don't, I'm not here to give you trading advice, but most people would probably tell you don't trade with real money until you feel like you've got a handle on trading. Seems like it makes sense, and that's why it's great that NinjaTrader defaults to simulated trading, okay? So when I hit go long, it entered a long trade, even though there was no, if I scroll forward, see manual entry, even though there was no BloodHound signal, it did enter, and it's just going to follow the rules that I gave it. And actually, this is a good example. If we look at my exit signals, so this is a great example of how you can unintentionally do something that you weren't expecting. And so that's why playing around with this a lot is a good idea. I entered a trade without remembering that it's well past trading hours. It's currently 7:20 p.m. Eastern time, right? And so my exit signal, as soon as that bar closed, thankfully we were near the end of that 5-minute bar, so I could show you that it exited at the close. And this is actually a good example of what I was talking about earlier. The exit time, the time in which the trade exited, will actually shows up at the moment that it exited. So you'll see when you're trading live, it does actually happen at the expected time. It's just those back tests where they stick it onto the next open of the bar. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I entered without thinking about the fact that I'm still following the rules. I've told Raven, whatever trade I'm in, get out if an exit signal appears. And when that bar closed, the exit signal appeared. The only other button I want to mention on this panel up here is the auto enabled or disabled button. So by default, Raven starts auto disabled, meaning it's not going to enter trades until you're ready to enter trades, right? So we want you to feel comfortable before you start entering trades, especially when you start working with real money. And so we've added Raven to the chart, but in order to get it to start trading automatically using our BloodHound entry signals, we would need to click this button up here. So we click that. It is now auto enabled, which means that if an entry signal were to appear now, right, then, and there's no exit signal, of course, then it would enter automatically according to the rules that we gave it. Now, this video was all focused on back testing, but you can carry forward most of that knowledge into live trading, live simulated, and real money trading when you start getting ready for that. Okay, so this was just about testing, because the first step for most people using our software is going through that loop of creating a system, testing it, adjust, test, adjust, test, as many times as you need. But once you do start running this on a live chart, you can get your performance results for all the trades that occurred live. So to do that, we'll right-click, go Strategy Performance, Raven, and Real Time. Usually, real time and historical usually gives kind of odd results because the back testing and live trading do behave differently, like I said earlier. And so you just usually want to do real time here. And we've only taken one live trade, and it got stopped out real quick by our exit signal. So it's a negative $10, so it was a slight loss with one trade. But that gives you an idea of how you would look at the results for, let's say you ran this live for a whole day, and then at the end of the day you wanted to go back and look at your performance results. That's the real time. So this video was all about back testing in Raven. There's more that you can learn, and you'll learn a lot of it just as you play with this stuff. But let me show you some resources to learn more. So let me bring up our website, SharkIndicators.com. We'll go under Support, Documentation. Okay. And at the time of this recording, this is how this is laid out. You've got the three main things you may want to learn. So BloodHound and Blackbird and Raven. So BloodHound and Raven come together. So we'll click on Raven here. So I do recommend that you go through and read this page. It does give you more information both about how it handles entries, but also how it handles exits, especially if you start doing more advanced exits where you want to specify a direction. This sort of talks about that. So for example, it says a short signal will close a long position and a long signal will close a short position. So we didn't cover that in this video, but that's an important thing to learn if you're going to do more advanced exit signals, where you want to have a rule that only closes short trades or a rule that only closes long trades under certain conditions. You can create a much more advanced exit signal logic that takes those things into account. Okay, so reading this page gives you very valuable tidbits like that. Okay, so read through this. You'll also notice as you scroll down, each of the major settings are in here. So if you wanted to learn about some of the stuff we didn't cover, read through this. Very useful. If you scroll down even further, there is a, well, we call it the video tutorial, but really it was a full workshop session that Zach held a few years ago. It was in the NinjaTrader 7 era, but it's still very relevant. He covers some things I didn't, including using the ATM. So if you want to live trade using the NinjaTrader's built-in ATM for trade management, like I said, you can't backtest that, but if you want to live trade with that, he does talk about using that. So it's a very long, detailed workshop video, well worth watching if you are excited about getting the most out of Raven. Okay. Oh, here's an example right below this video. I noticed Zach has included some links specifically for NinjaTrader 8 that take you to NinjaTrader support. And it looks like one of them is learning about the difference between market replay results and backtest results. Today, you've seen how backtesting works, but market replay does behave differently. So it looks like this talks about that. It's a forum post, but looks like it's worth reading through. So he's included some links that will give you further information Everybody trades differently, so we try to just give you a variety of resources. And like I said in a previous video, you can come here to find resources for all the other or all the other features of BloodHound. And while we're here, I should remind you that, like I said, this video that's on this page came from a weekly workshop. So you are welcome and encouraged to come to our weekly workshops. So under support, training workshops. Read through this page. It gives you the schedule. So for BloodHound, it's at noon Eastern. If you are curious about our Blackbird product, we do that on Fridays at noon Eastern. So join in. It's totally free. Click the link here and register. And then if you scroll down, there is a recorded workshop section, huge resource if you're looking for a variety of different topics because a lot of people come into BloodHound not really knowing what they want to do. Not everyone has a fully fleshed out system in their mind. And so they're just looking for ideas from different sources to see if they can come up with something that fits your trading style. And so this gives you a huge list of topics that we've covered in the workshops. And the more recent ones in the last year or so are broken out into individual topics. So they're much more digestible than they used to be, typically between 20 and 30 minutes on one particular topic. So a great resource if you just want to nerd out on BloodHound and really sink your teeth into it, again, once you get your feet wet with the videos that you've just watched. And by the way, these videos do take you to our YouTube channel. So these are just YouTube videos. Of course, shameless plug, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified of new videos. We typically post new topics at least 1 or 2 a week, sometimes more depending on how long the workshops go. Okay, that covers the absolute basics of Raven. Keep learning. Remember, we do offer unlimited email support, so if you do get stuck, you have questions, you're trying to figure out how to build something out in BloodHound, or just need help finding a particular topic video or anything like that, you can contact us under support. And I usually tell people to use the email address directly that way instead of using this form, because then you can attach screenshots. If you're saying, hey, here's an example of what I'm trying to do and it's not working, then we can point you in the right direction if you can provide us a screenshot so we can understand your question better. And by the way, if the workshops aren't quite enough for you and this support email isn't quite enough for you, we do also offer one-on-one training by the hour, where we would connect with you and actually help you build out your system. So if you'd like more information on that, just let us know. All right, with that, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.